needs the recording, you can get it later. Okay. Fine. So before I start the demo, I just want to introduce myself. So my name is Prasad Reddy. I have 18 years of professional work experience working as an architect. Okay. So I teach DevOps, AWS, .NET, Python, Selenium, and few others. Okay. There are many more. The reason why I could teach all that is because from past 10 years I'm teaching, and professionally also, yes, from past 18 years I'm working. So I'm an architect. So that's the reason. Generally, some people ask me like, are you a test engineer? I am not a test engineer. I am an architect. Correct, right? So generally, whoever is an architect, they'll be having a top level view. Correct, right? Who controls the project? Let's be interactive session. Okay, so it would be interesting so that you can ask me any question, doesn't matter. Fine. So let's be interactive so that it would be something meaningful. Fine. So generally in a project, you'll have developers, testers, project managers, scrum master, architect, someone, right? So architect will be designing the project. Correct, right? Now, architect will have a top level view. So whatever architect says, other team members should be doing the same. Correct, right? So including the testers. So since architect is controlling, architect should be knowing everything. Correct, right? If someone comes and asks a question to me, how do I do it? If I'll be saying this is how you should be doing it. Correct, right? This is what you should be doing it. Then that person comes to me, I'm stuck over here, then I should be knowing that, right? Yeah. Okay. So if and also since I am in the top level, so definitely if I need to suggest something, so definitely I should be knowing everything, then only I can able to suggest. Otherwise, how do I suggest? Correct, right? So that is how it is. So that's about me. Anyway, so before I start the Selenium and Python demo, I want everyone to introduce because I see less crowd only, so we can go through each one of them. Okay, so there is one person joining offline. I'll start with him. So please go ahead. Yeah, Mr. Raja, I have completed my degree in 2020. After that, from Java Selenium channel. Okay, you learned already Java with Selenium. Okay, okay. This time at least letter was doing helping me was doing that. Okay, okay. So you lost the touch. Yeah. Okay, good, good, good. Fine. Okay. So online we'll start with Arun. Arun, your introduction, please. Arun, am I audible? I can't hear you. Okay, can you speak now? Okay, I can't hear you. Anyway, so let's start with Deepthi then. Deepthi?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi Deepthi.
Yeah. Um, I have experience in a non-voice process. Previously, I have worked in a BPO company. So now I want to shift to IT.
Okay, good. Fine.
Yeah.
Nandakumar?
Yeah, hi brother. So myself Nandakumar from basically I'm from Chennai. Here I've been working last 5 years in WDC and Wipro as a technician, like a troubleshooting in a system level admins. Now I'm trying to move in a DevOps side. So my current company need is water testing. So that's I want to try to learn here.
Okay,
so that's it about my
you wish to move to the DevOps side. Are you saying that?
No. Currently, I'm in a testing only. So Python testing, I want to learn actually. So that is something basic what I'm doing. Now we want to deep dive with the tools in the DevOps side, starting in with the Python actually.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Purnachandra.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, myself Purna Chandra. I completed my BS in 2018 and I worked as a supervisor in United Breweries Limited.
Okay.
It is like a Kingfisher.
Uh-huh.
So I want to change as a software IT
Okay.
side.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Srinivas.
Hi, this is Srinivas. Sir, actually, I'm searching for like job only now because previously I was preparing for government sector. Now I'm completely shifting for IT sector. I did Python from same Akshara Institute, I did SQL classes from Akshara Institute.
Okay.
And like I'm searching for a product support engineer. So
Okay.
in that process, like interviewers, they're asking for Python also. They're not only focusing on SQL, they're also focusing on Python plus Unix also.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm starting for Python classes.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Now, this would be agenda for today. So what exactly we do? We'll start with what is functional testing, then we'll learn what is Selenium and the components in Selenium. Then we'll just try to go through one small example of the Selenium. Okay, so at least you'll get to know like how Selenium looks like. Okay, if you don't understand, nothing to worry about it. Anyway, we'll be learning later as well. Correct. So then, why we should be using Python only? Why not any other bindings? For example, like C#, Java, or whatever. And why are we learning Python over here? Right. Then the advantages of Python. Then few other topics anyway, like what exactly I'll be covering as part of this particular course. So we'll learn, right? Before learning any technology, any process, or any language, first of all, it is very important to understand why is it required. Am I correct? Now, this is not only one language here. This is combination of so many things here. It is actually automation testing, and including the Python you are learning, I would say including the DevOps. It is combination of so many things here. So it is always good to know the basics of it. Correct, right? Let's start with from the basics actually. So directly, I don't want to jump into the functional testing, all that stuff. So we just need to understand the basic stuff so that we all get familiar with what exactly we are planning to do. Okay, so then we'll cover each one of them. Fine. Yeah. So the very first thing which I want you to understand is, okay, I am just saying here web application, but I don't want to say, we'll first start with an application first of all. What is an application? Why do I need to develop an application? Please be interactive. Anyone can answer this. What is an application? Yeah, client has some requirements. For that requirements, you are developing something and giving it to them. But generally in an application, there will be a user interface. Correct, right? For example, there is a login form and there will be a registration form. Correct, right? So user interface. Now, there are different types of applications. Generally, we develop different types of applications, right? So again, I'm saying when you say application, so it's a software product, I would say, right? Now, their user can verify the details and also user can input something into that particular software. Am I correct? Okay, and that would be matching with the user requirement. I would say client requirement. For example, e-commerce application. What do you do it in e-commerce application? You order something, right? So you'll be searching the products. Am I correct? Yeah. You place an order, add to cart, all that you do it. Yeah. So correct, right? Bank details, all that you provide, and you place an order. So you can get the status of the order, all that, right? So where exactly it is all this happening? Through an application. Correct, right? through an application, we are doing all this. Okay. So generally, what I meant to say is you will have a user interface for any application. Correct, right? Now, there are different types of applications. Console application, I'll just write down also, so that would be little clearer. Without knowing all this, if you directly jump into the topics, then you don't get the clarity. So that's the reason I'm just trying to explain. Console application, desktop application, then web applications. Apart from that, you will also have something like services. We'll understand even the services also. Okay. Console application. Console meaning this is the console. You go to CMD and command prompt. So this is a console. Correct, right? So here, this we call it as CUI. CUI. What do you mean by CUI? Character User Interface. Interface. Okay. So here I can only type the characters. Am I correct? So for example, if I need to say like enter first name, I just need to display like enter first name. Then user will be typing the first name. Then if I say enter last name, user will be typing the last name. Okay. But here, we cannot display any graphics here, meaning the images and all you cannot display. For example, I'm asking the user to log in. I can simply say enter your username and password, but I cannot say like a graphical user interface. There will be a button, submit button, and you will have 2 boxes to enter the username and password. All that I cannot display over here. Okay, so this is only a CUI application, character user interface. Okay, fine. Now, character user interface applications are actually used for background processing applications. Wherever you need minimal input from the user, we can take it. Okay, sometimes even that is also not required. You can hard code it. Okay, or you can take it from some other files and do it. So this will be scheduled actually. This will be scheduled. Okay, so for this, you don't need Selenium. I'll come to the Selenium, but you don't need Selenium. This is a background processing applications. So that's the reason. Fine. So this is about console applications, and single user will be using these applications. Not multiple users will be using this applications. That is about console. And console applications can be developed by using Java, can be developed by using .NET, C# or Python, anything, doesn't matter. Okay. But next one is desktop applications. Desktop application is a graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. The PPT now I am seeing is a graphical user interface. How do I know? Why am I saying it is a graphical user interface? See, I can click on insert, I can say design, I'm seeing all images over here, home, everything, all that's right. So this is a graphical user interface. Okay. So I can display something to the user and also take inputs from the user to this particular one. Okay. I would say a better example for that would be if you go to the supermarket. In the supermarket, there will be an application. Nowadays, people are using web, but earlier it used to be like there will be one exe or one shortcut will be there. They'll just click on it and it opens it only in their system. They'll be very fastly entering all that, right? The details and everything. They'll be scanning. Still, you can see in many of the supermarkets actually. Okay. So yeah, that billing related. That will be there only in their system. You cannot access anywhere else. Correct? But it is a graphical user interface. Okay. You can't access anywhere else, but it's a graphical user interface. That we call it as desktop applications. Only in that desktop they can able to use it, not anywhere else. Getting my point? So now desktop applications are not shared applications. Are not shared applications. Shared meaning what? No, multiple users cannot use at a time. Multiple users cannot use at a time. You and me cannot use at a time. Only that user can use. If I need to use that, even in your system, you need to install everything and do it. Let's say if it is using Java, Java needs to be installed, then exe or jar file needs to be added in that, then only they can able to execute that particular one. Otherwise, we can't do it. Correct? That's a, but it is a GUI. It is a graphical user interface. Okay. So this is my GUI. The calculator. I can say 2 plus 3 here, and this is my GUI. Correct, right? So, but I can run this calculator only in my system. The same one you cannot run, right? Unless this is installed in your system. Am I correct? Yeah, but it is a graphical user interface. Okay. So that is about graphical user interface. Then web applications. Web applications. Any application which you can able to run with the help of browser. Sorry, correct? So now you have a Chrome and you have Internet Explorer, Firefox, Opera, so many browsers are there. Okay, using any browser doesn't matter. If you can able to run that application is a web application. Getting a point? Amazon.com, web application. Gmail.com, web application. Flipkart.com, web application. Correct, right? So Google is a web application. Correct, right? Now, what exactly we are trying to do here? Now, I'm just trying to access this. So I'm saying google.com. This is a web application for me. Now, it's a graphical user interface. Yes or no? It is a graphical user interface. But what's the difference between the desktop and this one? Anyone can use it. This is a shared application. But desktop is not a shared application, but this is a shared application. You can use it, I can use it, anyone can use it. Okay. But where exactly this will be deployed is the question. Now, what is a deployment? Yes or no? We should understand it. Now, there is something called, we need to understand what is meant by development, what is meant by deployment. Correct, right? Now, development meaning you are right. If there are some requirements client has given, for that requirements you write some code. Can be Java, can be .NET, can be Python, anything. But you make it work in the developer system. It's actually called development. Fine. So deployment meaning, yes, it is running successfully in my system, but I wish to run it on some other system or some other servers, a set of servers. Okay. Now, just copying the files from this system to that system will not work. What I need to do, I need to configure that system. For example, if I need to run Python, Python needs to be installed in that system. Okay. If it is Java, Java needs to be installed. Okay. And the required permissions you provide, then copy the files from this system to that system and make it work in that system is actually called deployment. Getting a point? So running the application in the developer system is called development. Running the application in the some other system or set of servers is called deployment. Getting a point? Now, to run your web application, you have to deploy that application in a server or set of servers. Because it is not running in this system. It is running in you deployed in some other system, but there is some infrastructure is required for that, but you deploy it over there, then you'll get some URL here. For example, let's say you are running in one server. How do I access any server in the internet? Using IP address. Yes or no? So I'll get an IP. Using that IP, I can access it. But let's say I'm deploying it in multiple systems. I cannot share multiple system IP addresses to each and every user. So that's the reason what do? We'll create some kind of domain name, correct, right? Using that domain name, it talks to each and every IP address. So that domain name will provide. Now, google.com is my domain name. Internally, it can talk to multiple servers. Getting a point? Okay. Now, don't think that this is not relevant. This is relevant. Selenium is required to test your web applications. So if you do not know what is a web application, how do you test the application? Yes or no? That's the reason I'm teaching this. Okay. You must understand how exactly web application works Internal details it is required to understand. Clear? Amazon.com is also a web application, correct? So now tell me the difference between this and this. Yeah, what is the difference between application server and a web server? Okay, application server is actually used for, someone asked that question, that's why I'm saying. Application server is for dynamic web applications. So Tomcat is application server. Web server is actually, Apache is a web server. For static hosting, static web content, we actually use web server. Is that clear for you?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So now, what exactly I'm trying to do? I'm saying like 2 plus 3 here. I'm saying 5. Here also I can do the same. But what's the difference between this? This anyone can access. This I can only access. Is this clear? Fine. Now, this is a web application. This is desktop application. Okay, that's the difference. Now we understood desktop, web, all three. Now there is something called service as well, right? Service as well. Now, how do you, what is a service is the question. Correct, right? Now, take it again for this, we need to understand with an example only. Okay. So there is a ICICI Bank website or HDFC Bank website, any bank website you take it. Now, I can open ICICI Bank website in my browser. Yes or no? And I can open it in my tab. I can also open it in my mobile app, mobile device. In mobile device, again in two ways. One is by using the browser. Second one is by using the app. Correct, right? Many ways. So wherever you try to use this, the same information is getting displayed to you. Am I correct? Fine. So, but what is the difference here between all this? What's the difference? There is some difference will be there definitely. But what is the difference? The difference is the look and feel is a difference. But the data is the same. Yes or no? The data is the same. No change in the data wise. Am I correct? So I'm also logging there like by using username and password, and yeah, website also and mobile app also, everywhere the data is the common. Now where do you store the data generally? Where do you store the data? Online also should answer. Generally for an application, where do you store the data? In a database. In a database. It can be MySQL, SQL, Oracle, anything. It can be anything. So you will be storing the data in a database. Am I correct? Now, all these application talks to the database. Am I correct? Whether it is a mobile application or a desktop application or a web application, anything talks to the database. Okay. Now, to develop these applications, the front-end technology can be anything. For example, I can use for the web application, I can use Java. Okay, for mobile application, I can use Android. Okay, so front-end technology can be not Angular or React, or if it is a native application, I can use Java also, again C++, or anything. Okay, so front-end technology can be anything, but to get the data, and to insert the data, to update the data, what exactly we do is, because that is common. So let's say I have three applications. One is, I'll just try to write down here. This is a mobile app. Okay. And we are trying to have a web app. Correct, right? A web app. And let's say there is also one tablet related application. Okay. Tab related application. All are talking to the database. Correct, right? Now, I need to log in from here, and also log in from here. Now, do you write 3 times the same code? Are you getting my point? I'm talking to the same database. Here also same username, password. Here also same. Here also same. Now if I wish to talk from my web application, now I need to take username and password and pass that information to the database and verify whether it exists or not. Now, to do this, some code I should write it. Now, if I am writing the code directly in the web along with my Java and all, the problem would be I can't reuse that code in the mobile app and the tab. Because I embedded that code in the web only. In that application, I embedded it. Now I cannot reuse anywhere else. Yes or no? Because, are you getting my point? I've written one application. Think like one project I have it. Now there is a UI. UI meaning using HTML and all. There will be, you are displaying some data in the UI. Now there you are taking username and password. In that file only you have written the code to get the data from the database. Now I can't separate it, and you have done it there only. Now for mobile application, I cannot reuse the code. I should again write it there also. And even in the tablet also, what code I'm saying? Data retrieval code and insertion code. I'm not talking about look and feel. Data retrieval and insertion code. Okay. For example, I'll show you. Okay. This we see. I am actually coming to the API testing. So you should understand what is API first of all. Directly, I cannot say no. We'll also teach API testing. You should know what is API, right? So now can you see here? This is my API for me. I'm taking first name and last name and it does something, but I'm not sure. It's not returning data, but generally it should. Okay, for example, if I'm taking this one, 1 second. But anyway, so there will be a URL and it returns some data. It is taking little time, so that's fine. But let's say, for example, here also you can here. Let's say I have a username. Here I have a password. Okay, I'll pass username and password, and it will. If it is success, I'll get some information. So this is only the data related. Now, what I'll do is I'll develop a service. I'll develop a service in between.
Sir, hello.
Yeah, tell me, Srinivas.
Sir, can you brief me about API?
Wait. I'm coming to that.
Okay.
I can directly jump to the API to make you understand API only. I'm doing this.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So now I will develop one service here. I'm calling it as service. Now in this service, I'll write this kind of service. So this is common. Now this code, I can reuse it here, here, and here. Now what exactly I do? If I wish to log in, there is a service called login here, where here I deployed it here. So my mobile application can talk to this service. Service can talk to the database. Same goes to web application also. I don't need to rewrite the code again here. The same thing. Even my tablet can use the same. Yes or no? Now, this service can be developed by using different technologies. See, there is something called web services. We call it as web services and APIs. Web services and APIs. Web services, see, whichever the technology you are using it, all three should understand. Which one? Web, mobile, and tab. Because these are developed by using different technologies. So all three should understand. Okay, then only it can pass the data and it can retrieve the data. Correct, right? So that's the reason you develop a service which can be understandable for all of them. Because those are all different technologies. So let's say if I'm creating one Java service, now Java object, my mobile application cannot understand. Correct, right? So that's the reason which can be understandable to everyone. So we write it in that particular language and we'll take it. Okay. Now I was talking about in the services only, there are two types again. One is web service. Getting the point? Second one is APIs. Okay. Now what is a web service? Correct, right? So web service is written by using SOAP, which you don't need to understand. Generally, people are not using now. This is a SOAP based. It's one kind of language, but only that SOAP envelope we call it as, this can be understandable by high level languages like C#, Java, that can understand, but not Angular, React, those things. That's the reason nowadays we are actually developing the APIs, application programming interface we call it as. So whenever you talk about API, it is HTTP based. So in a browser, when you type anything, it is HTTP protocol. Am I correct? So it is a HTTP based. Now, in a HTTP, you will have methods like get, post, put, delete. These are all the methods. Get, post, put, delete. So now this is my URL. Now this URL I can execute if it is only a get. In the browser, whatever you are executing, these are all get methods actually. Okay, but post, put and all, post, why should I use post is to insert some data. Put is to update some data. Delete is to delete some data. Correct, right? For that, you need to send some data. For that, you cannot use a browser. Definitely, you should be using a tool to do it. I mean, like my application can do it. But internally, I can develop, I can test this one. But these will be accessed by my applications, my web applications, my mobile applications. This will be accessed. Understood? Now, that is what is API all about. But why am I saying this API can be accessed by mobile also? Because whenever you are talking about API, we are using something called JSON. JSON. Now, this is JSON. What is JSON? This is JSON. Now I'm passing input as a JSON and the response also will be the JSON. Since my mobile application or web application, anything can understand the JSON. So that's the reason I can able to use this APIs across the devices. Doesn't matter. Any application can understand JSON. So that's the reason nowadays people are using APIs. API takes the JSON as an input, JSON as an output. So that's the reason. Understood? Okay. So now, Srinivas, is that answered your question? API?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now we understood the applications, we understood the services. Am I correct? Okay. So far, no questions. Clear? Okay. Am I going fast? Faster? Is it fine? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Now the next one is, let's come back to our agenda now. Okay. Whatever we learned till now are building blocks. Correct, right? To make this, to understand all this, we should get that knowledge first. Then only you can able to understand this. Okay. Now we should know, first of all, Selenium is an automation testing tool. Correct, right? Now we should know what is testing, right? Ensure the quality of a product. Okay. Now tell me, you mentioned product. What is the difference between project and a product?
Project means a set of spring takes a project.
No. Project and product meaning, if you are developing an application for a client, then it becomes a project. If you are developing an application for yourself, for your organization, then it becomes a product. Whether it is a product or a project, it's an application. Yes or no? Now there will be some requirements from the client. Now you should ensure whether those requirements are matching. Yes or no? For that we test it. Am I correct? Okay. Now, yes, Now, this is the definition of Wikipedia. I just added over there. So the process of evaluating and verifying the software product or an application does what it's supposed to do. Okay. So that is what is software testing is all about. So there are two types of testings, right? Functional and non-functional testing. Okay. So can anyone explain me what is a functional test and what is non-functional testing? The name itself is suggesting, first of all. What is not functional? Okay, let me explain now. I'll take Amazon.com. Okay. In the Amazon.com, you're trying to log in. Yes or no? No. There is any user interface, and you are inputting the username and password, and you are clicking on login. Now, what happens if you input incorrect username and password?
So
It shows invalid or incorrect or whatever it shows, correct? If it is valid, then it actually, you can log in and you can go to the home page. Now, what exactly you are trying to do here? This is a functionality of the application. Am I correct? This is a functionality of the application. Am I correct? So this, to test this one, we use this process. If you are testing this process we actually call it as functional testing. Understand? You are testing the functionality of the application or feature of the application, correct? Login feature, registration feature. So that's a functional testing, correct, right? So then non-functional testing. Okay, you are trying to log in. You're trying to log in. Now, when you try to log in is actually taking time. It is taking more than 5 seconds. Now, my client is saying this is not acceptable. I should get a response within 2 seconds. This is non-functional testing. This we call it as performance testing. Getting a point? This is a performance testing. And let's say immediately you developed one e-commerce application like Amazon.com only. You deployed it. You deployed it multiple servers only. But let's say in the December, you will have some offers. Generally, you'll have some offers, right, in December. So at that time, you'll get more traffic. It is unpredictable traffic you are getting it. Now, it is getting slowed down. Now, for that, what we should have done is something like load testing. Load testing. Correct, right? So if I get so much load, whether my application can able to, work. Yeah. So will that be available? Can my application can take that much load or not? Correct, right? So that comes under non-functional testing. You're not testing the functionality. You're testing the other parts. Correct, right? Load, performance, all that. Correct, right? So this is non-functional testing. But what we will be focusing on is functional testing, not on the non-functional testing. For non-functional testing, there are other tools. Load runner, like that, there are so many other tools that we should be using it. But for functional testing, we are trying to use the Selenium. Understood? Yeah, fine. Now, this is what is functional testing is all about. I'm not trying to like go through the definition. You know what is functional testing now. So functional testing focus on requirement. Correct, right? So what client has given the requirement, it focuses on that. Correct, right? So then non-functional focus on user expectations. That's what I mentioned, right? User is expecting within 2 seconds, I need to get a result. So it focuses on that. That is non-functional testing. Correct, right? Yeah. So now that can be tested by using 2 ways, right? Which one? Functional testing can be done by using 2 ways. One is manual, second one is automation. So what do you mean by manual?
check it is graphics are correct.
Yeah. So what do? I mean, manually, you take that URL, you go to the browser, you type in URL, and based on the requirement, you actually input the details and you verify whether you are getting the expected details or not. If you are getting expected details, the test case is passed. Otherwise, it is failed. That is how manual testing we do it. And before that, we'll be writing so many test cases, and each user story, like test case, will be testing it. Correct? So that's how generally we do the manual testing. But few cases, it becomes a difficulty to go for manual testing. Why it becomes a difficulty is the question. Correct, right? Now, we are into agile methodology. Now, if I really need to teach agile, it takes time. Fine. So I'm not trying to teach you agile now, but generally what I'm just saying, like overall idea about agile. In agile projects, what happens is we work on sprints, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks sprints. Okay, like meaning you take few requirements and you try to finish within this period and all, we do it. Okay. Now, when you are in a sprint, manual testing, like you will have only less time. When you say 2 weeks, generally we get only like 10 days time, because weekends we don't work. Within those 10 days, that sprint should be finished. So we have very less time. If you are really doing the manual testing to give the test results, it takes some time. Correct, right? So, but if that can be automated, okay, someone was actually saying like, I am interested on DevOps. Getting a point? So that is where DevOps come into the picture. So there will be a tool called Jenkins. So what I can do is I can write using Selenium. I can write some automated test cases. Correct, right? Let's say I have a google.com. What I can do, for example, I'm just trying to show you one example. So I have a google.com. I'm just making it as simple. This way, you don't test it. I'm just making it as simple. Okay, if you have a google.com, so what I can do, I can write an automation test saying that go to this URL. Then you type here something like Python. Getting my point? So then you click on enter. When you click on enter, you will get to see these results. This is what I wish to test. For that, I automate it. Then there is a tool called Jenkins. What will happen is developers are developing the application, right? So they will be storing the code in the Git, and automatically one build will be triggered. The code gets compiled. Everything will happen and it gets deployed into one server. Then you integrate in the same process Selenium also. What Selenium does, this does, it's deployed. Now at the same time, you are also testing also. Automatically the testing is happening now. Are you getting my point? Automatically test is happening. It is not manual now. Within 5-10 minutes, you'll get the result, no? If it gets deployed and manually to test it, it might take 1 hour, 2 hours. But instead you are getting in 5 minutes all the results, no? That is what is automation. That is the benefit you get it. You are integrating this process over there. You write these test cases separately. You can run it, but that can be integrated even in the DevOps as well. So that is where Selenium comes into picture. That is why I said, being an architect, I can able to understand top level. That's why I can explain in this level. Are you getting my point? Okay. So otherwise, simply learning like Selenium, but where exactly it is required? That is also important, no? Yeah, practically. Okay, fine. And also many times regression happens. Regression meaning, let's say in production, there is one issue and the code was deployed like 2 months back. Now after that, you are doing many changes also. Fine. And there is one issue in the production, and in one page there is an issue. Now developer is actually working on that particular page. He fixes that page only. But when you are in hurry, what will happen? You will test only that page. You don't test other pages. That fix might reflect other pages also, no? Now, if it is automated, what will happen? It will test even other pages also. So then if it is reflecting somewhere else also, then you will find out there only, no? Otherwise, what will happen? You deploy into the production. There you'll end up having so many issues, right? If it is automated, very quickly this is happening, right? And that too, again, it's there in the same DevOps process, right? In the CD, we call it as. In the release process, you'll integrate it. If this is not success, you don't even deploy. Understood now? So that's the reason we actually use test automation. Test automation. Okay? Understood? Yeah. Fine now. Now, to do the test automation, we have these tools. Okay? Renorex, Selenium, TestIO, Telric, okay, Microsoft Code UI. Many are there. Now, the question is, why should I learn Selenium only? Why should I use Selenium only if there are some other tools? Okay, the answer for that is all are not open source tools. We need to pay for it. These are all not open sources. You need to pay for it. So that is the reason we are learning Selenium. Okay, so for testing, generally, the tendency is, why should I pay for a software license for testing? In most of the organizations, this will be the tendency. Okay, if I can find a tool which is efficient and which is open source, why can't I use that? Correct, right? So that is the reason people actually are using Selenium. But the very important point here is, initially I mentioned console, desktop, web and all, right? But using Selenium, you can only test the web applications, not the desktop and console applications. Is this clear? Okay, but there is support for mobile, but it is not fully evaluated. Fine. Yeah. Fine. There is something called AppM and all for mobile application testing that is actually famous. Okay. But using Selenium, but 90% of the applications nowadays are web applications. Am I correct? Okay. So it's not that you are narrowing. You are actually trying to test that 90% of applications. Okay. So that is the reason we are using Selenium. Okay, now what is Selenium? Selenium is a open source automated testing tool used to test web applications across various browsers. Correct? Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are n number of browsers, right? You have Opera, you have Chrome, you have Firefox, correct? Many. So Selenium can be used to test n number of browsers. It's not tied to any one particular browser. Is this clear? Okay, so that's the reason we are actually using Selenium to test the functional testing of the application. Clear? Yeah, fine. Now, these are all the advantages of Selenium. Now, test scripts, meaning you can use all these, like you can use Python, you can use C#, you can use Java, you can use PHP, okay, to develop your scripts for the Selenium. That means in whichever the language you are comfortable with, you can use that particular language to develop the test script for Selenium. Correct, right? Now, anyway, you have decided to learn Python. Okay, and why we should be using Python, why not any other languages? I'll come to that when I come to the Python. Okay, so anyway, so you can use any one of them. Okay, Selenium does not say, no, this is this only you should be using, this is faster than that. Selenium does not say that. It is our opinion. Okay, but we'll come to that anyway. Fine. Then you can use this in any of the operating system. It's not like it runs only in the Windows. It can run anywhere. It can run in Mac OS, it can run it in Windows, you can run it on Linux, anywhere, everywhere you can learn it. So that is also another advantage. Correct, right? No restriction at all. Heard about platform independent? This is platform independent. It is not dependent to any one platform. Correct, right? So that's the reason. Okay. And I already mentioned for any of the browser, you can use the Selenium. Correct, right? So these are all the advantages by using Selenium. Any questions, anyone so far? Okay, fine. Let's move ahead. Now let's try to understand the components in Selenium. Components in Selenium. So most of you would be knowing it, but let's try to understand each one of them. There is something called Selenium IDE, okay, Selenium RC, WebDriver and Grid. Let's try to talk about each one of them briefly, okay, briefly, so that you'll get some idea about each one of them. Actually, IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's an editor you can think of. It's a editor, okay? So why do I need to use this Selenium IDE is to record the test scripts, okay? You can record and play. What do you mean by record and play? Now what I can do is, let's say there is a google.com. Now what I can do, I can start that IDE, then I can keep typing the way I test. For example, let's say I'm actually typing like Python here. See, I go to browser, I go to google.com, then I type Python here, correct, right? Then I click on enter. This is happening. So you can keep doing it. It will record that and it will generate a code for you. Getting the point? It will generate a code. If you wish to modify that, you can modify it and you can convert it to Python, C#, anywhere, anything doesn't matter. Okay. Then if you wish to modify on top of that also, you can modify. So what benefit you are getting using this? Instead of you are writing the code, it is writing the code for you and giving it. Getting a point? Okay. So then if you wish to modify, you can modify. So that's the IDE. Correct, right? So that benefit you get it if you are using IDE, but generally we don't use this. Correct, right? Okay. So generally, but it can go hand in hand with the WebDriver. I'll come to the WebDriver anyway. Okay. So, but generally we don't use it, but this is not fully evolved also. Okay. So that's the reason. So we actually do not use it, but this is what we can do. Record and playback. Script editing we can do is, yes, definitely cross-browser testing. And like I mentioned, you can export the test cases to any of the languages also, doesn't matter. You can export. Okay, that's what I mentioned. Correct, right? Yeah. Fine. So that is about the IDE. Now the second one is remote control. Before the WebDriver, we had this one. Now it is deprecated anyway, but we had this one, remote control. Okay. So again, here also you can use any language, whether it can be Python, Java, any language you can use it. But what exactly happens is you need to understand the architecture of this, then you will get to know. So you can see here, I have three browsers. One is like Chrome, this is Firefox, this is this one, right? Our Internet Explorer, whatever. So now you are writing the code by using this. Okay, directly this code, this cannot understand. Fine. Now in RC, there was something called JavaScript. Do you know JavaScript? JavaScript is actually used in the browser to validate the controls. For example, validate controls meaning I have a login form. Okay, or I would say registration form. Whether user has entered last name is mandatory to me. So whether user has entered last name or not, if the user entered the email ID, whether user has entered at symbol or not. To do all this validation, we use JavaScript. Okay, earlier this RC was written, RC was actually taking the help of JavaScript. You write the code in Java, Ruby or whatever, then that gets converted to JavaScript, and using the JavaScript, these test cases were getting executed. Correct, right? But who converts that? There is a remote control server. In between, there will be a server. So that will convert into JavaScript and make it work. Correct, right? So people were using that, but it takes some time, right? It's not that much faster because it is doing the JavaScript conversion and that. So they were facing, since JavaScript does not support many things. Okay, I'll come to the drawbacks of this. Okay, so once the WebDriver is introduced, they stopped using the RC, okay, which is remote control one. Okay, this is the architecture of it. You can see Selenium RC work by injecting JavaScript functions into the browser. It injects the JavaScript functions and make it work. Correct, right? That is what is happening. So this is the architecture. Okay, so you will have a Selenium server client libraries by using Java, Python, all that. Okay, so then you have a browser drivers, all that. Fine. So these are all the drawbacks. Slow execution because that's converting. No, in between there is also one more layer. So that's the reason. Slow execution. Okay, and it was not doing the pop-up handling properly. Pop-ups, you know, right? In a browser you'll get pop-ups, all that. So that handling was not that much proper. So that's the reason. So I mean, if there is no option like WebDriver, yes, they were using that only. Correct, right? RC only. But now we have an option called WebDriver. Now you don't need to have a convert to JavaScript, all that. So that's the reason we are not using that. We are using this one. Correct, right? Now let's come to the WebDriver. This is the successor to the Selenium RC. Okay. Now why we should be using this and what benefit you get it by using a WebDriver? What benefit? What was the problem with that? Now you understood the problem with the RC, but let's try to understand architecture of this one first. Now, each and every browser will have something like driver. Okay, Chrome will have Chrome driver. Firefox will have Firefox driver. Like that, each and every browser will have drivers. Now, Selenium is able to talk to the drivers directly to the drivers. Getting the point? Directly to the drivers. You don't need a JavaScript and all. It can talk to the driver. Now that driver will execute all that. Correct, right? So you write using this one. Now you are using the drivers now. Using the drivers, this driver will talk to the real drivers. Getting a point? This will be used in our code. I will anyway show you the code also. So the driver, we are using it. We are talking to the driver. Now driver actually executes whatever the script we are writing it. Okay. Now the native language only we can able to understand now. Selenium can able to understand. Does not need to convert it. Native thing. The tags and all it can directly access now. Like if it is a text box, the text box name only directly it can access. Correct, right? Since it can able to do directly, you don't need this conversion. Understood? So that's the reason now it is faster. Correct? And definitely all browsers have the drivers. Correct, right? So that is why we are using WebDriver nowadays, not the RC. Is this clear? Okay. So that itself will give you so many advantages now. Correct, right? So cross-browser, many programming languages. I'm not saying RC was not doing. Even in RC, there was a programming language support. Okay. So interaction with web elements. That's what I'm trying to say. It can directly interact with the web elements. Okay. So I was talking about search box, whatever, right? It can directly interact with that particular one. Okay. And easily navigate to the pages, and headless browser is important here. Headless meaning when I'm trying to execute it, it actually opens a browser. Getting a point. It types the google.com, everything it does. I mean, any URL which you are specifying. Now, if I use headless browser, it doesn't open anything. In the background, everything happens. That is what is required when you are doing the automation. I don't want to open my browser and do it everything. It should in the background, everything should happen. For that, I can use headless browser, no? Yes or no? So that is important. Okay. And alerts and pop-up and all. It doesn't mean that it is not doing the testing. It does the testing. It will not be displayed to you. Yeah. Exactly. It will not display. It will not be displayed to you. Okay. So that's the reason. And you can use a number of frameworks also. Okay, like PyTest, unit testing, all that we can do that. You can integrate it. Okay, fine. Now, there is one more component which is Selenium grid actually. This is also, I would say, important. Okay, so what exactly Selenium grid does is, parallelly I wish to test it in multiple browsers. I can use Selenium grid and I can test. Parallelly meaning at the same time everything should happen. Okay, so using this one I can test it. Parallelly I wish to test it in multiple operating systems. Linux, Windows, Mac, everything I need to do it. Then how do I test it? Getting a point? Okay, so there is something like hub and node. We can also call it as master and slave. Wherever Selenium is installed, that can be a hub. And other systems, I can have multiple systems. It can talk to multiple systems. One system can be Windows, another system can be Linux. Getting a point? And it can talk to all the systems and it can execute. Correct, right? So that is possible by using Selenium grid. Parallel testing. The parallel can be, it can be in any term. It can be browser, it can be like I mentioned, multiple operating system. Correct, right? So that we can concurrent cross browser testing can happen. Parallel testing can happen. Okay, so those are all the advantages by using Selenium grid. Yes, we will be learning it once we are thorough with the driver first. Okay, then we'll also learn this because I am an expert even in the cloud technologies. I know what needs to be done. I know how to create nodes. Okay, I will be testing thoroughly. I will be teaching thoroughly that as well. Okay, fine. I am a AWS solution architect certified. Okay, so I know what needs to be done for that as well. And I'll teach you even Jenkins integration also thoroughly. Okay, now what do we do? Any questions so far? Clear? Okay, fine. Now what do we do? Don't get scared about the code. First of all, everyone should keep this in mind. Whenever you see the code, you shouldn't get scared about it. Let's say there are 1,000 lines also. If you learn each line at a time, it becomes easy. Yes or no? Okay. Otherwise, if you see like all lines at a time, then you get fear. Okay. Line by line, if you understand, nothing will be there. I'll tell you, any language will use variables. Why do we use variables? Store the value. First name, my F name equals to Prasad. I'm just storing my value. A equals to 2. 2 I'm storing into A. That's why variables. Okay. Then control statements. If condition, else condition. Am I correct? Control statements. Okay. So meaning if I have like 10 statements, 10 lines, I would say 5 lines based on one condition should be executed. If that condition is true, these 5 should be executed. Otherwise, other 5 lines. So if and else I'll have it. Yes or no? Control statement. Iterative statements. Meaning I wish to display, welcome to Python 100 times. Do you write print 100 times? No, right? So you should be writing once, it should display 100 times. For that we use like while, for, or whatever iterative statements you'll be using it. Okay. Now let's say I wish to store marks of a student. There are like 6 subjects. I can use something like list. Correct, right? And there will be some system defined functions. Correct, right? If you learn this much, sufficient, no? Any language will have this much only, no? But how to use is the only point, right? So we shouldn't be worrying about the code. Okay, we should make it as simple. Okay, I am here to do that. Fine. So fine. Now let me show you the code. Fine. So let's try to understand each one of them. First 2 lines, ignore it. Ignore it. Okay. So I mean those are all like you need to have a web. You need to import it actually, that module. Then only you can use it. But as of now, just ignore it. Fine. Then the third line is driver path. In your system, you need to download the driver, like Chrome driver I mentioned. You just need to download the path. Okay. So now, whatever example I just mentioned here, The same thing I'm trying to write it in a code. Getting my point? Like I went to the Google, open a browser, I went to the Google, I typed what? The Python, then I got this page. That much only, I'm just trying to test it with the code. For that, I have written some code. Correct, right? I'm just trying to make you understand each line so that you will know how Selenium works. Correct, right? So all the steps you just need to note down. For each one of them, you just need to write a code. Correct, right? So now I'm actually using Chrome driver. Chrome. I'm just saying WebDriver.Chrome. This is WebDriver.Chrome, and this is the driver path. Some executable you'll download for the Chrome driver. I said WebDriver works with Chrome driver only. So you just use it, and that will be the driver path over here. Now, driver.get, and I'm using google.com. That means it opens a browser with google.com. Simple. No issue in that. Correct. Then after that, what needs to be done? In the search box, let me come here. In the search box, this is my search box. I'm typing Python. First of all, I need to identify this search box ID. So to get an ID, I can go to something like page view source. Here I can get an ID. Okay. I'll let you know. Don't worry about it later. Now, okay, you'll get an ID for the search box. Fine. So that ID I got it. Fine. So that ID is Q. Correct, right? Now I'm taking that search box, and in that search box, I'm typing this Python Selenium. Python Selenium. I'll type it. So to type it, we say send keys. Getting my point? So then I need to enter, right? To do that, I'm just using key.return. Enter. This for enter. So it gets entered. Then after that, I'm waiting for that we call it as waits actually. You wait for 10 seconds because immediately you might not get it. So wait for 10 seconds. You can mention how many seconds I should wait it. So you wait for that much. Then after that, you are actually verifying this result actually. Okay, the header. In the header, what text I am getting it. I'm just looping through and displaying everything over here, and I'm quitting from there. Simple, nothing much. Correct, right? Yeah. So this is how we write Selenium code. Understood? Okay. So we'll make it easy, everything. Nothing to worry about anything. Okay. But I just given you the sample. But to reach to this level, first of all, we'll need to learn Python first. Then we'll come to this. Clear? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Now we understood why are we learning Selenium, the components, everything is done. Correct? We have a clear idea about each and everything now. Now let's try to understand why should I use Python over Java or C#. Correct, right? No one is stopping you to use Java or C#. Correct? If you are comfortable with that, you can definitely use it. But someone new, he does not have any idea about Java or C#. Correct, right? They are trying to learn the automation. If you are teaching them the Java and C#, it takes some time for them to learn. Yes or no? But if it is Python, compared to other two languages, it is easy to understand. That is the reason we are learning Python. Okay, it is not like you get like it will more speed you will get. Automation would be faster if you use Python. It's not for that. If they are comfortable with that, they'll write the code very easily with that only. Correct, right? But someone new, for them, Python will be easy because less code will be there in the Python compared to other one. I'll give you a few examples also, then you'll understand. Let's try to understand the advantages over other programming languages if you are using Python as a binding for Selenium. Clear? Yeah. Now, simple and easy to learn. Correct, right? So in other programming languages, there will be brackets. Bracket, flower bracket, square bracket, so many will be there. Here we don't use much. I'm not saying we do not use brackets at all, we'll use less. Correct, right? If I'm using list and all, definitely I need brackets only. But for classes, functions and all, I don't need to use. Correct, right? I'll use indentation. Indentation meaning spaces. Spaces, okay, separated by spaces. Okay, that can be done, used in the Python, but not in other programming languages. For example, you can see, I'm just printing hello world. This is a Python one. The green box, this one is Python one. In the Java, how many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I correct? Here, simple, one line only. No? Correct, right? Just print. What exactly you needed, you just type that only. No? Why should I go for all these classes, all that? No? Correct, right? So that much simple is Python. Okay. And this is a C# example. Even in C#, it's the same, no? Like that many lines you should be writing it. Okay. But it doesn't mean that in using Python, you don't write like 10 lines of code or 100 lines of code. Even there you should write it. But in Python, let's say you're writing 10 lines of code. In C# or Java, it becomes like 300 lines of code. Something like that. Okay. 100 to 300, at least 3 times greater. Okay. If you're writing 10 lines here, there it would be 30 lines. Something like that. Okay. But it doesn't mean that no, within one line, everything will happen. Okay. So that you should understand. Okay. I've seen like so many people will be saying, I'll make it, it will be very easy, very fewer lines and all. Okay. And they don't teach the advanced topics at all. They think that people get scared if I teach that much and all. That shouldn't be the case. Okay. As I mentioned, if you learn line by line, it becomes simple only. Okay. And this is another example for the looping actually. Okay. I have a list of like fruits, and I'm just looping and displaying one at a time. Apple, banana, one at a time. I'll pick it, and I'm using a for loop over here. Okay, don't worry about it. I'll anyway teach that later. Okay, but how many lines we are using? Like 3 lines of code. So here I'm using indentation. So you can see this comes under for. I'm using like 4, 5 like spaces over here. That's indentation. But here, see how many lines I'm using? For loop I'm using, and bracket, so many things I'm using here. Correct? In the Java, even in C#, like so many lines. Correct, right? So there is a difference. Correct? And to achieve the same thing I'm saying. Correct? Yeah. Now, interpreted and compiler. Do you know the difference between interpreter and compiler? Anyone? This is 100%. Okay, forget about interpreter. At least compiler, you tell me. Why should I compile a program? Anyone? Because you all learned. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, someone is.
Detect the errors.
Okay, that is incorrect. Okay. Compilation is not to detect an error. So, in a system, generally, in a system, you'll have a processor. Am I correct? Processor only executes. Okay. Now, processor can understand only zeros and ones. Yes or no? But you are writing English statements, English words. It cannot understand. No? There has to be something in between to convert that into that particular zeros and ones language. Correct, right? That's why we need a compiler. Something should be there to convert it. Whether it is a compiler or interpreter doesn't matter. Something should be there to do it. Okay. Now, in that process, if something that whoever is converting, if that does not understand, then that becomes an error. Now, Deepthi mentioned to detect an error. So you don't compile to detect an error. Why? When you try to compile, at that time, if anything is not understandable, that becomes an error. Correct, right? So without converting into zeros and ones, you can't execute a program at all. Correct, right? That's why we need a compiler and interpreter. Am I correct? But what is the difference between compiler and interpreter is also a question. Correct, right? So let's say I have 10 lines of code. We have seen just now the code, right? So 10 lines of code. What compiler does is all 10 lines at a time gets converted. Then it gets executed. it keeps one intermediate file, then using that file, it will be keep on executing it. But what interpreter does is one line at a time. One line at a time, it will convert it. Okay. Earlier, people were thinking, see, Python is an interpreter. Python is an interpreter. Okay. So other languages are actually like C#, Java, these are all like compilers. Okay. Now, earlier this was a problem actually. Since it's not a compilation, correct, right? So it's an interpreter. It takes some time if the server capacity is not proper. Okay, if you are not having like RAM, like too much capacity, all that, then compiler is better in those cases. Nowadays we have supercomputers. Yes or no? So that's the reason that's not a problem nowadays. Now they are taking this as an advantage. Why as an advantage is you don't need to compile it like all at a time. So when you use the compiler, what will happen? If something is wrong in the code, it does not execute. It upfront only it says, no, I can't do it. Correct, right? But if it is an interpreter, line by line, right? Let's say there is an issue in the 10th line. First 9 lines will execute. But then only it goes to the 10th line. Okay. So because of this nature, they are saying I don't need to compile. Compilation part, I'm not doing it. Since it is an interpreter, it is faster than that. This is the opinion. It depends again. Correct, right? So I'll give you one example directly so that you'll understand easy. So give me, hope you are not in hurry. Yes or no? Are you in hurry? Anyone wish to leave? No, right? Yeah. So I'll take like few more minutes. We'll see. Okay. So now what exactly I'm trying to do is, I'm just saying Python online interpreter. I'll open Python online interpreter here. Then I'll also open C#. Why am I opening C# is I'm comfortable with C#. Okay, fine. Now, what I'll do here, I'm saying A equals to 2, B equals to 3, C equals to A plus B. Okay, and I am printing, this is Python. Okay, I'm printing C. This is what I'm doing. Fine. Now, here also I'll do the same. Which one? C#. So this is the C#. So what I'll do here is int, I need to say here A equals to 20, or same thing I'll do it 10, right? I'm not sure. 10, and int B equals to 20. I'll say int C equals to A plus B, and I'm trying to say C here. Now I'm executing the Python one. You're getting the result 5. So this is not 10 and 20. Let me make it as 20. So 30. Here also I'll do it. Run. I'm getting 30 here. It took some time if you observe. Okay, there it did not took time. Okay, it's compiling and doing it. So you need to observe that. Okay, that is one point. Once it compiles, once it runs, later on it will be faster. C#. But here it is not taking that much time. Immediately you're getting the result. So that is one point. And the second one is, let's say I'm saying print Q here. Q is not there actually speaking. It is not there at all. Now here also I'm actually saying what? Console.writeLine and Q here. Now I'm executing this. It displayed 30, then it is saying error. Since it is an interpreter, it is executing this, then this, then this, then this. There, in the 7th one, you have an issue. There it is displaying. Yes. But let's try to execute this. That is not even error because it's compiling. Understood? So that is why people are actually claiming this is faster than the compilation. That's why Python is faster than the C#, they are claiming, because of the supercomputer nature. Otherwise, this is faster. Understood?
Yes.
Now that is also one of the advantage. Actually, earlier it was a disadvantage. Now people are claiming it's a advantage. Okay, fine. Other than that, there are other advantages as well. One is you can use Python for it is actually like you can plug and play anywhere. It's not only to develop a API or a web application or something. I can actually use it even in the DevOps also. Okay, why in the DevOps? Let's say, for example, I'm dealing with the Linux systems. If I'm dealing with the Linux systems, I need to learn shell script. If I'm dealing with Windows systems, I need to learn there is a bash script or PowerShell. Okay, now I need to have a language which should support both. Getting my point? If I learn Python, what will happen? I can support both, no? Okay, and even let's say my applications are developed by using Node.js and all. My Node.js applications, let's say I wish to manage the file handling. I need to read some data from the files, then insert into the database and all. I need to write an automation script for that. If I'm really writing a script by using Node.js to do that, takes like so much time. But if I use Python, Python is like very simple. You can do that like very easily. There are many like ways to achieve that. Okay, so and even for data science we are using it. In so many places we use Python. Understood? So that's why people are learning Python. Okay, fine. And the portability, I just given an example that in any of the operating system I can use Python. Okay, doesn't matter. Platform independent. Correct, right? And some people usually calls this mission language also. It's not mission language, but it is tied to that. Okay, it can talk to the operating system kind of stuff also. Okay, that's the reason. Fine. So then it can integrate with all the other languages also. Like I can have it within C# also, Python code, and I can run it. Like in the Java related project also, I can include Python and I can run it. Okay, because of all this, Python, we are using it and we are using Python for Selenium as well. Is this clear? Yeah. Okay, so now we already understood what is API. And we in the course, we'll also learn, I'll come to the course details. See, in the course, definitely the Python basics, we will be learning it. Okay, so I'll just show you. The agenda I'm just showing you. So when it comes to the Python, the Subhash might have shared you, but okay. So anyway, these are all like data types, control flow, iterative, interactive statements, collections, exception handling. This is for unit testing. Okay, so PyTest and all we'll be learning. A Selenium WebDriver we must learn. Okay, so this weights we need to learn. Okay, so then PALM we will be learning it, and after that you'll also learn. Hybrid framework we'll learn it how to take the data from the Excel sheet, logging all that you'll be learning it, and the Git you will learn here. Are you getting my point? Git. So Azure DevOps they mentioned, but you will be like you need to store the code in Git, right? Git. See, you are developing some code. Where do you store the code? If you are storing the code only in your server, if that server get crashed, you'll lose the code, no? So generally, you should keep it in a server with the help of version control system. In detail, at least 1 week, I'll be teaching that. You learn that in detail. Okay, about how to do that. Okay, so how to resolve merge conflict, how to create branches, all that you'll be learning it. Okay, that's the extra advantage you get from me because I am also teaching DevOps and I work on DevOps as well. Okay, if you ask a Selenium guy, they'll simply explain within 1 or 2 days, this is how we should be doing it, not in detail, but you'll get in detail information from me. Getting my point? And after that, we'll even go for API testing. I'll show you some Postman, all that, right? That and using code also, how do you test it? That you'll learn. And I'll also teach you how to integrate with the Jenkins. Getting your point? Okay, that is where actually Selenium will be used according to me. Okay, so you will learn the Jenkins and you will also learn how to integrate Selenium with the Jenkins. Okay, so then in the end, okay, if everyone agrees, I'll also teach WebGrid as well. I told you, right? Parallel testing. Okay, so that can be, that also I'll be teaching it. Okay, it's all depends on you. It is not depends on me. I have patience. If you have patience, you can learn more. If you do not have patience, then I can't help. Correct, right? So, and it has to be interactive sessions. What do you mean by interactive? From the first day onwards, if it is not interactive, the problem is people will attend online. I'm fine with attending online. I'm not saying don't attend online. But on the same day, if you are not practicing, initially what I'll do, I'll make you like each one should actually become familiar with the tool. And whatever I am doing, you should also do it. So in the class only, let's say if I'm installing something, you should also install at the same time. So if any error comes, at least initial few days, so you rectify there itself, then you don't stuck anywhere. Even though it takes some time, that's fine. No? Correct, right? Ultimately, my point is getting a job. Sorry, I would say one more. Completing the course is not an achievement. What is an achievement? Not even getting a job for me. Sustaining a job is important. People will get somehow. Nowadays, you know all the stories. I don't need to explain. But actually, I oppose it, but still, people will get it. But ultimately, you should work on projects. And you shouldn't be dependent on anyone else. That is most important. So keep that in mind. Then everything becomes easy, no? If you keep that in mind and learn in that way, you can easily get a job also, no? By yourself, no? Okay, do it in that way, then everything will happen. Okay, yeah. Now I'm happy to take all your questions. Any questions? Before that, let me end my recording. I think it is already 1 hour 30 minutes. I'm just